Is there something in your life that you're passionate about that you want to take to the next level and you're looking to speed up the process somehow? If you're dedicated and follow what I'm about to say next, you could potentially change your life in just 1 year. Now, I know that sounds super hyperbolic and clickbaity, but it's legit, I swear. Just keep watching and you'll find out. What's up, everyone? My name is Sean Mundy. I'm a photographer, a digital artist, I make music, and overall I just love making things. One day I'll be able to figure out how to properly introduce myself for videos like this. Today I wanted to talk to you about the best way to grow in any medium of art, really, and it doesn't really even need to be art. That's just the lens that I look at things through because I'm a photographer and I make music. Pun not intended. If you like any of my content, be it my photos or my music, or you want to see more videos like this in the future, I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel and like this video, because the YouTube algorithm gods, they like that and I want to be blessed by them. So if you could do that, I would really appreciate it. And before the thought even enters your mind, this is not going to be me plugging some paid course or something like that. Everything I'm about to talk about is completely free, but it will demand a level of seriousness and dedication from you for these methods to actually bear some fruit. So if you're committed to growing and taking your work to the next level, here are the meat and potatoes of how to do that in just 1 year. Time-based projects. They're really simple on paper, but often pretty hard in practice, and it really depends on what unit of time you use for your project and how serious you take it. In short, the idea is to make a piece of content in that given window of time and to repeat the process throughout an entire year. Sometimes inspiration and motivation are kind of hard to come by, so the goal of these projects is to actually just get you out of the habit of having to wait for them and to just kind of work constantly instead. Now that sounds dramatic, but you can tailor these projects to fit your needs. There are some pretty popular projects that abide by this principle, some that you may have already heard of actually. The two main projects that I'll be discussing in this video are the 52 Weeks project, which I've done in the past and I'll discuss my personal experiences with it later, and the 365 project. So as the name would suggest, the goal of a 52 Weeks project is to finish a piece every week for a year. 52 weeks, one piece every week, 52 pieces at the end of the year. I would recommend releasing these pieces out to the public just because often finishing a piece is sometimes even harder than actually making a piece, in the sense that it's hard to kind of call something done. You can leave something on your computer or leaving it in a book for the longest time, but actually releasing it to the public and not touching it anymore is really difficult. So I recommend getting into the habit of doing that just to kind of familiarize yourself with the feeling of distancing yourself from something and allowing it to exist without maybe even like being completely satisfied with it. Personally, I think 52 pieces a year is a pretty high amount of work, so I recommend 52-week projects to people who are starting out in any field, or if you're in a field and you just want to kind of give yourself a new challenge. While this might sound simple to some people, this project will still demand enough of your dedication to grow, but like with all things in life, what you get out of it is ultimately what you give. For example, if you want to be a successful poet and you decide to take on the 52 Weeks project and put out a poem every week, but you only really put in a night's amount of work per week, you're not going to grow that much and you're not going to actually challenge yourself that much, so your poems are probably not going to get much better. However, I would still argue that you would eventually become a better poet because of this, because you'd be making 52 pieces a year, and even though they might not be as good as they could be, they likely wouldn't have been made if you didn't take on the project. My experience with the 52 Weeks project was actually kind of like this. I didn't finish the project in time back in 2012 and 2013 when I did it, but even then I still made some of my most popular images in that time frame, which is really cool, but also a bit frustrating just because I think I've made better work since then, but that's a completely different discussion for a completely different video. But even though I finished the project late, it still forced me to make a bunch of images that I likely wouldn't have made if I didn't take on the project, and it gave me a lot of confidence going forward in the future to try out new things. Starting the project was arguably the best move I ever made for my career, and I always recommend it to people who are starting out or even veterans of a specific field if they're looking to be more consistent with their output. You'd make more pieces in a year, you'd sell more prints, you'd license more images. It's basically just, it exponentially grows. Only good things can come from making more work, and it will force some discipline on you, which is always a good thing. To show you how much I personally grew throughout this year and a quarter, here's the first image I made, some of the middle images, and the final one. For context, I was looking to become a better creative and conceptual photographer, so that was my goal going into it, and also obviously to get better at making art more consistently. So this is the first image, and in my opinion, it's pretty meh. And I went into the woods with no idea what to do, and I kind of just sat somewhere and did a bokeh panorama to at least make a lot of depth of field in the image and change the colors in post to make it more interesting to look at. We're a few weeks in at this point, and this isn't super different than the first image, but it's definitely tighter as far as composition, concept, and execution go, in my opinion. This is not really my style today at all. It's a bit too cute looking, but it's not a bad image, and so I'm glad I made it. We're further along at this point and a few weeks after the last one, and more progress is being made. It's a pretty interesting angle. The depth works well for the ropes. Still doing the bokeh panorama thing because that was super trendy at the time, but overall coming up with ideas and executing them and making slow and steady progress, which is basically the point of this project. So we're almost halfway into the project at this point. More red stuff as you can see, and this is actually right next to the image of me laying in the tree that I showed earlier. This is just the part of the tree that stayed in the ground but was hollowed out somehow. A lot of the time I wouldn't have a concept for the week and would just kind of go for a walk in the woods near my parents' place back when I was living with them, and I'd bring something along with me that I could use for the image and would come up with something like this. This is a bit after halfway through the project. I actually really like the idea of this image, although the execution isn't my favorite, but this idea actually inspired another image that I made a few years later, and it's kind of like the sister image to this, only a better version of the idea. So in retrospect, I'm really glad I made it, even though it was very uncomfortable to have like 40 pounds of chain tied and bound tightly to my head. Now we're getting into what I'd say are tastes in my current aesthetic or style, which is really cool to see all these years later. I still really like this image, even though it's incredibly simple. You might recognize this image. I made an entire video dedicated to this image that I shot while traveling. If you haven't seen it, there's a link in the description to check it out. Arguably one of the strongest images that I made from this project, in my opinion. Another strong image, although I really wish the shirt was different, or at least not so casual looking. It's a small detail, but personally kind of ruins the image for me, but I still think it is a strong idea, and this kind of idea forced me to get friends and people to help, which is good since I was working almost exclusively alone on prior images at the time, and I hated asking for help, and to this day I still do, but doing this project and images like this definitely helped me break out of my shell a bit. So we're almost at the last image of the project, and arguably this is my most popular image. I made a video showcasing the Photoshop document for this one if you're interested. The image is called Sigil. It was shared a bunch all over Tumblr and Instagram at the time. It went like semi-viral, I'd say. And still to this day, out of all of the prints that I've sold on my web shop, which there's a link in the description if you're interested in supporting what I do, it sold the most. It's still a very strong image that I enjoy, but hope to overcome in terms of popularity someday with another image, since it's been like 6 years now, and I personally think I've made better work since. And here's the last image of the project. It's kind of similar to the other arm drip photo, but with a few added elements, and it's not the strongest image of the project, but it's not bad either. So as you can see, the difference between the first set of images and the final images in the project are pretty substantial, and this is all between 1 year and a year and a half of work. I eventually began to ground what would ultimately become my current style, and I'm not sure if I would have done that if I hadn't done the 52 weeks project, or if I had, it would probably have taken a bit longer. Even today, I'm actually abiding by this structure. I don't publicly release images as part of the 52 weeks project, but my goal is ultimately to release a piece every week. Next, the 365 project. As the name would suggest, this involves creating a piece of art once a day, every day, for a year. This is the most intense of any time-based project that I'm aware of, and to people who have completed this or are currently doing it, I have the utmost respect for you. I know some people have been doing a daily project for years, and I genuinely cannot fathom how they do it, and it impresses me every single day, so kudos to you. I've heard some horror stories from some photographers and artists that I've met in the past who said that they've lost like friendships, they've gotten terrible grades from this, they've had to break up with their partners or been broken up with. And regardless of what you might think of that balance between work and life, I definitely respect the amount of diligence and work that goes into putting that much time and energy into one practice, all for the purpose of getting better at something. Since I haven't personally done a 365 project, I can't really give you any personal anecdotes, but I guarantee that if you commit to create a piece of art or a piece of content every day, or even if you just lay the groundwork for one, you will see growth that you otherwise will never see. If you make music, you don't need to release a song every day. That's kind of unreasonable, but you could come up with a melody every day, or you could come up with a chord progression, or you could write like 5 lyrics or 5 lines of lyrics every day. Stephen King writes 2,000 to 3,000 words every single day, so he's technically abiding by these principles and is doing a 365 project, really. He just happens to release a novel every year, year and a half, which is wild considering how much he's already written over the past. He's written like 40 or 50 books, and like half of which are movies, things like this, so he's a good testament to the effectiveness of a 365 project, or even just being consistent in general. If you're a photographer like myself, you might not be able to make an image every day, although I know many who have, and it's very impressive, but maybe you could come up with a concept every day, or give yourself 30 minutes to an hour every day to kind of draw out all the details that you'll need to for your next photo shoot or something like that. It doesn't necessarily need to result in a finished piece every day. It's just a matter of making it work for yourself. One thing that a lot of people that I know of that have made 365 projects stress is that it's not necessarily about striking gold every single time. It's just about making something and flexing the muscle that is creativity and finalizing something. And if you only take photos once a month, or you only write a piece of music like 3 times a year, it's gonna take you a long time to get good. Whereas if you make a habit of doing it consistently, you're gonna get where you wanna be faster. There's a large community of 3D artists that will render images daily, and they've been doing it for years, some of them. Guys like Fuck Render and Beeble Crap, you can find their Instagrams in the description below. Really inspiring to see people just putting out like consistently really good content every single day. And sometimes it might not be the most complicated thing, it might be a bit more simple, but like they strike gold so often because they do it so often. There are loads of other ways you can use this principle of having a time-based project to your advantage. You can do bi-weekly projects, you can do weekly, you can do monthly, you can do yearly. The point is to just pick something and stick to it. Try to be consistent. Don't worry about being perfect because you won't be. Just put something out. For example, I'm trying to release a YouTube video every month about photography or music or discussion videos like this. And I'll likely get into other stuff like reviews or whatever because I just like to run my mouth, and I figured I would channel this into something and build up a bit of an audience here on YouTube and hopefully give back to people, because I've taken so much from the internet that if somebody learns something from my channel or gets inspired from my channel or my videos or my content in general, that would be awesome. I have a lot of other ideas for videos, and so I'll likely end up doing more than 12 a year, but that's my baseline. I figured once a month, it gives me plenty of time to shoot, write the script, edit, export, and make sure there's no errors with the audio or anything. So I think it's pretty feasible, and that's what I'm trying to do with this one. And so this is my monthly video. That's all for this video. If you want to check out my socials in the description, they're all there, along with the artists that I mentioned earlier, my newsletter, my email, my web shop if you want to purchase some of my prints, my music, basically all just stuff I want you to click. So check it out. Again, if you want to see more videos like this in the future from me, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video, all that good stuff. And if you've watched this far, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Take care and stay safe. I'll see you all in the next video.